Hey everyone, Dan Jackson here again, coming at you live on tape from his wife's garage gym of character. This week's discussion posed quite a unique challenge. Utilizing the skill set or the technique of active constructive responding and seeking out a moment and hoping it to be kind of organic was a challenging, rewarding, and remarkably indescribable with how positive it was. This was honestly a module or a discussion where I needed to personally be reminded of things. This past week, the past few weeks, I've been letting my temper get to me about things in regards to things, one, I couldn't control, and two, a little too much seeing the forest for the trees. And I find that very awesome because I pride myself on putting others before me in regards to I don't really care what I need to do as long as it's benefiting someone else. And as conceited as that sounds, I've kind of forgot that recently in certain aspects of my life. Now, that being said, this module provided the opportunity to reset that quote unquote dial. Now, that's really neat because it allows us as people, as coaches or whatnot, to recognize that we are human and that we do become complacent at certain points, and it's okay to get a kick in the rear. So, getting that back on track, I had a conversation this past week with a high school kid who, unfortunately, is very troubled. Now, on the surface, you would never be able to tell. And this is a kid, honestly, that I had never interacted with. He's not even on my team. And I just happened to be observing his behaviors across the past month and a half or so. I coach swim practice, and in between practices, morning and afternoon, I lifeguard. And during that lifeguarding time frame, I have the opportunity to watch the other teams and kind of gauge on their coaching behaviors, athlete behaviors, etc. And this kid specifically kind of stuck out because he's a good kid, has a good head on his shoulders, but he always kind of seemed a little nervous. So there was an opportunity where I kind of pulled him aside after one of his practices when there was very few others around. In fact, the only person around was a lone patron in the pool. So as we were talking, I got to pick up on some things about him. He's an individual that is very afraid of what he looks like, afraid of others' thoughts, and that all started with him telling or his willingness to share with me his dietary regimen. Because currently in the summer season in our area, it's like nearing the end of peak training. So a lot of the kids are saying, hey, I feel like garbage, I'm really tired. And the first question that I can't speak for other coaches, but for myself, again, sounding conceited, that I ask is, what does your dietary intake look like? Because food plays a magnificent role in cognition, and let alone all the other physiological parameters and barriers with athletic performance. But that aside, food greatly impacts cognition in the brain, and his answer was just kind of a giggle. So we started from that standpoint, and as we got to talking, I had to take a moment to ask him a few questions about kind of where his experiences were from the standpoint of why people's thoughts about him matter and how he could define the phrase other people matter, and that includes himself. Now, when I added that aspect of that includes himself, he gave me a double take. So we we blossomed a conversation off that. And as we progressed through the conversation, he came to learn that he had only been involved with the first 3, maybe 4 steps or 4 levels of active listening, which the first level is ignoring, second is waiting your turn to talk, that's where you're kind of just thinking about something else to say before they go. Listening to the words, but not necessarily metabolizing them or reflecting upon them, and then listening to the words and displaying some body language, and that's the most positive. However, him not getting past that was disappointing. So he has yet to receive, up until this point when he and I were talking, the empathetic listening and the active constructive listening, which, I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm tooting my own horn or whatnot, but this kid needed someone to listen, to just allow him to know his voice was heard. And unfortunately, our conversation did get cut short to where he wasn't able to divulge everything. However, by being an adult to where he could talk to me about things was heartwarmingly saddening, because it reminded me, we as coaches, we as adults, this perception of, like Dr. Sullivan said in the video, the perception is coaches deal with the negative problems, which this was the case. But within our conversation, that kid and I, we took the route or the path of dissecting the positive, quote unquote, issues in his life. And a lot of them happen to be, he has a lot of success, but it's never recognized. And we took the moment to recognize that. And then he and I actually dissected it later. So I kind of took from that conversation overall that it's okay to be the adult where a teenager can be in the presence of a child and teenager who just happens to look like an adult. Because even though kids banter each other all the time, they do actively listen a lot. It's just in a different fashion. And if this video could be longer, I would go down that rabbit hole. But as chaotic as this video sounds, I'll provide a question to you guys. Do you feel it's okay to be a comforting adult, or do we always have to be authoritative? Do we have to always be a type of authoritarian? No. I ask that because my high school swim coach at 62 years old, when I was 22, was my best man in my wedding. And he would read us Spider-Man comics and talk about the histories of Doc Councilman telling silly sophomoric jokes. Why is that an issue in today's society? What do you guys think? Thank you for listening. Have a great night.